We're back! Well, we're talking to you this time from Anchovy, Jamaica. Yes, there is a town by the name of Anchovy.
And we want to brag on our listeners from last week. And from the countries that had the most listeners, we started with Thailand. Hey, Thailand. Then the Philippines, particularly Metro Manila, USA, and especially the states of Georgia and Alabama. Thank you for being with us. Then, amazingly, Bangladesh, Myanmar, then India, Cambodia, Honduras, and Ethiopia. 9 countries have been the top listeners that we had with us last week. So we want to welcome you and all the other countries that are with us this week. We're excited to have you as part of our family.
And it's our dream that what God is doing here is He's establishing a global family of media missionaries, new messengers, a whole new generation of messengers who understand the times that we're in and the need to use digital technology and visual storytelling and media, but also the need to stand up and open your mouth and be a voice for God in this generation.
We're so excited that you're part of this family, and it just keeps growing week after week. And we want you right now to stop, and can you hit that share button and share to at least 3 of your friends what we're doing right now. So if you'll stop at this moment and share Media Light Network and let them join us live so they can be a part of this and get to know you, get to know us, and be part of this amazing network.
And today's topic, once again, we're going to talk about Babylon, but I want to talk about Babylon, our mission field. So I'll be right back with my talking points, and then after that, an interview with Johnny Moore.
And enjoy the birds flying around, because we are still at the Rockland Bird Sanctuary. And I'll see you in the chat room.
Okay, see you soon.
Mwah.
ไลฟ์สดของอาทิตย์ที่แล้วสำหรับ Media Light Network ค่ะ
ပြီးခဲ့တဲ့အပတ်က Media Light Network တိုက်ရိုက်ထွင်ခြင်းအစီအစဉ်မှာ
Media Light Asia Punavaram Facebook Live பண்ணாங்க அத மறக்காம பாருங்க.
La scorsa settimana su Media Light Network Live
We stand as God's new messengers before people today to introduce them to Jesus Christ. Knowing Jesus is what qualifies you to speak, and it's where you get your power to speak. It is the personal experience that you have. We are calling them to meet someone who has changed our life. We will never be the same. We know Jesus. Today's talk is going to be a little bit different. First, because of where I'm at. I'm in a very accessible place. I'm just on a country road, sitting on a concrete wall, and it's just the only way I could find a place where I could record. So I don't know what all is going to happen, and I'll just try to go with it. A lot of birds, a lot of animals, and even quite a few people. But it's a good environment in a lot of ways too. I want to introduce you to something that I haven't told you about, but it's a really important resource. It's a podcast that I've been producing for many years, but we're in season 4 right now, and if you're ever going to understand your Bible, you've really got to get your hands on chapters 1 through 12 of Genesis. The Bible opens with this foundational story. It's 12 chapters long. And then as you jump over to the end of the book, the end of the Bible, you will get a repeat. It will return now to those first 12 chapters, and you will see the theme of Genesis 1 through 12 over and over again through Scripture. So I have a podcast called the Thread Bible Podcast. You can look it up on any podcast platform, and we're going to go slowly, verse by verse. There's so much here. Well, in chapter 11 of those foundation chapters of Genesis, we learn about a city called Babylon. It's the foundation of this city. And Babylon is the logical conclusion of the rebellion that started in chapter 3. God created humans and He made them lords over the earth with Him. They were co-regents to rule this planet under His authority. They were to be His imagers on planet Earth. And they got to live in the royal garden with the Creator God, and they got to enjoy fellowship with Him. There was only one requirement. That was it. All their needs would be met, but they had one requirement, and that was they had to be loyal to Him. And they proved by chapter 3 that they're not going to be loyal to Him, and they began the human quest to be a little God rather than to be the child of God and to be the image of God. They want to be a God. And so Adam and Eve fall and they bring chaos into the world, and immediately we start to see this cycle of stories as their descendants continue to attempt to be little gods and create disasters and pain all over the world, and then it crashes, and then they just do it again and again. Well, by chapter 11 of Genesis, you have the ultimate sophisticated attempt at doing this, and that is, instead of trying to do it alone, that it's a huge collaborative project, and humans come from all around to establish themselves and create a great city. And this city has two purposes. The first one is to dominate other humans. They want power over other humans. They want to name themselves and make their name a great name so that they are the rulers of the other humans in the world. And the second thing they want to do is assault heaven. They want to defy the Creator God. And so they, in their words, we're going to build a war tower that reaches up into heaven. Well, that's not possible because heaven's not just a physical place a little bit above the clouds. But the point is there, and humans have never stopped doing this. Well, Babylon as a city continues to be a dream of fallen, ego-inflated, selfish humans. And so we watch Babylon throughout the rest of Scripture being built up into this powerful, sophisticated nation. Now, simultaneously, God has established a people. And these people are the children of Abraham. And he's also from Babylon, but God chose him, also a pagan, and He takes him aside and He says, if you will be loyal to me, that's all I'm asking. If you will be loyal to me, through you, I will bring a blessing back to the earth. I will use you to be a light to all the nations. And so we see the simultaneous development of Babylon on this side and Israel on this side. Well, David establishes Israel, capital city Jerusalem. They build a temple to the Creator God, and David inaugurates this temple with great worship and with songs and festivals. And Israel, is like at its peak. But from then on, Israel begins to fall into a perpetual kind of backsliding. And God warned them over and over again. And then the day they never thought they'd see actually arrived when Babylon invaded Israel and tore down the walls and carried the people off as slaves. And more than that, they marched right to the temple of the Creator God, and they burned it to the ground, and they tore it down, and they took the precious gold pieces that had been made as items of worship to the Lord. They took it back to Babylon and put it in the houses of their own gods that they had made with their hands as a way of mocking the Creator God. And broken, Israel finds themselves in Babylon, and they are angry, and they want to do something about it. They want to do something to Babylon. And God sends them a message through prophet Jeremiah, and He says two things. Number one, I want you to integrate yourself into Babylon. I want you to become part of their fabric socially. I want you to participate in the economy. I want you to build a house. I want you to get married. I want you to just settle into that nation. Maybe some are thinking, from within, we will destroy them, we will conquer them. And then the Lord says the second thing, and this one totally shocks him. He says, and I want you to let your light shine in Babylon. Oh, but God, these are horrible people, and they hate you. They've burned down your temple. They're evil people. And the Lord's message, as you hear him speak from so many different voices in that era, he's saying to them, I know how evil they are, but they are spiritually blind. They've lost their way. And you're in Babylon not because they defeated you and not because surely they defeated me. I warned you I was going to send you there because you live just like they live. So you've gone there to become disciplined and pure, but you're also there to be restored to your central purpose as a nation. You are here to be a light to the nations and bring blessing to the earth. And I want you to shine your light in Babylon. Wow, what a huge word, and how merciful God is. That instead of being like all bent out of shape over the temple the humans built for him getting destroyed, and there was only one of them in the whole world, he's focused on the people who did the destroying, kind of like Jesus on the cross. Forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. And God understood these are lost people. And the book of Daniel is an entire experiment in living in Babylon as a child of God and speaking truth to power and speaking to people who have the power over you. They could do anything to you and no one would question it. And yet God is using the Israelites to speak the message of God to them. Now the Lord tells them, Babylon really is wicked, and there is coming a day, and I'm going to judge Babylon, and she will be repaid for everything she has ever done to anyone. But until that day, you stay there and you do good work. Babylon is your mission field. Well, they spend 2 generations of human life, 70 years, for some of them much longer than that. And the day comes, the day that they expected, one day this is going to happen. Sure enough, Babylon is invaded by another power greater than themselves. Babylon is destroyed and conquered, and the Jewish people can all go home. And most of them, some stay, but most of them do go home. But when they get home, it's not as glorious as they were told. It's not the dreamy place because honestly, there's a lot of Babylon still in Israel. And they could see it everywhere. And they started noticing the other Babylons, and one great Babylon resurfaces. This one is named Rome. And Rome has its own gods, and Rome conquers the world and wants to make its name great, and it defies, the God of Israel. And the same thing is happening all over again. Now this goes on and on. When you get to the end of the Bible, you've got the same circumstance. It's Babylon, the persecutor of God's true people. And Babylon is presented in the New Testament as a seductive woman. Because what Babylon comes to be understood is it's not so much a physical place as it is a system. Babylon, and please focus on me for just a minute. Babylon is the human conspiracy against God. It is an organized conspiracy. And it uses what we call the pillars of society. Well, what are the pillars of society? Well, all societies have to have a government, and they all have to have an economy. So there's business and there's government, and they all need some kind of physical muscle force, whether it's national police or a military. So you've got the military, And you've got your learning and your education, and that becomes a pillar. And then there is the religion of your nation, and that's a pillar. And these days, media is one of the great pillars. They are the mouthpiece to the whole country. And so you end up with these great pillars, or huge silos of power, the academic world. And it's all sitting there. And what we understand from understanding Babylon is all of these pillars will be made anti-Christ. They will be used, education will be used against the Creator God. And the economy will be used against the will of God. And all of it, it's all coordinated by the darkness in humans. And when humans do this, that's Babylon. Now, Babylon does its work not just with muscle, although Babylon is not afraid to shed blood. Babylon does its work in a crafty way because it's the capital of the darkness. And so Babylon uses seduction, and Babylon uses corruption, and Babylon uses money to turn hearts, and media to put messages in minds. And Babylon is very sophisticated at twisting and turning, but Babylon has devilish designs. And one of those is to destroy the worship of the Creator God and all who walk with Him, to persecute true followers of the Lord. Strangely, the way the Lord is, He loves Babylon. He will judge Babylon, but there are people in Babylon, and He loves them, and He is trying, as Jesus from the cross was trying, and He is reaching out to Babylon. But there is a day, and there's a day, and in the book of Revelation, then there's a cry, and the Lord speaks to His people, and He says to His children, "My people, now come out of Babylon. Don't stay there. Don't participate in her sins, and don't be caught and suffer her punishment. Come, step aside from her, because her time for judgment has come." There's coming a day when Babylon, which drinks the blood of all the innocents that have ever been slain, there's coming a day where Babylon will be judged. And heaven, in the book of Revelation, you see this story in chapter 18, heaven breaks out in celebration because Babylon has been the enemy of God's work from the garden. It begins in the heart, a twisted heart, as Eve chooses the rebellion and Adam joins her, and Cain, the murderer, builds the first city like a little mental prototype. And then the Tower of Babel, and this thing just keeps on going. It has always been there. But on the one hand, while it is at work to destroy the people of God on earth, it is still the object of God's love until that final day. And then God speaks out and He says, Babylon is actually a cage. It's like a trap. And the people who are seduced by Babylon, they all get filtered from the planet. They pull into Babylon because they love the things of Babylon. And then there is a moment where the trumpet sounds and the door of the trap snaps shut, and everyone who is in Babylon is now in Babylon, for the judgment of Babylon will come. But until that day, we have our chance. And Babylon is our mission field. Now, she may take our life if she can, and she will silence our voice if she can. This is not a peacetime endeavor. This is a wartime endeavor. But the weapons that we fight with are not the weapons of this world. But God is calling new messengers, and He is calling you to stand up and speak for Him to Babylon. All right, this is going to be a great interview. We've got one one of my very closest friends, somebody I admire a lot, and a partner in the Media Light Ministry, Johnny Moore, is here in the studio with us. Hey, Johnny, so glad to have you.
Good to be here.
And Johnny was here for those early days, and it wasn't like right now we've got this glorious campus that we've just christened, and acres and acres of, we got a football field, and we've got a recording studio and our own coffee shop, a really good sized coffee shop. And that's been fun. And we've got a worship area, dormitories. We could sleep 80 people there. But it wasn't like that in the beginning. What are your memories, Johnny, about the early days of Media Light?
The early, I think it was a lot of just learning as you go. I mean, it was learning for the students. It was learning for the staff as well. And it was kind of whatever could go wrong possibly might have gone wrong from, it was like,
especially the first time.
Right. It was definitely a learning experience because, there was flooding in the basement. So, a couple afternoons, our exercise time was instead going to be, all right, everybody pitch in, let's shovel out the excess water in the basement. Equipment malfunctions, but, figuring out, okay, this curriculum necessarily didn't work in this context. And a lot of the staff were new to it. This was the first time they ran a school. So one thing that was great about it was just kind of seeing grace in action. There was a lot of grace from the standpoint of the students extended to the staff. These are students that paid money to be there. But I don't remember there being any bad attitudes or ill will, complaining. It was just it was this big adventure. Everyone was in it together. But yeah, it was just a really, really great experience, I think.
I'm one of those people that I love to pioneer new things. Sherry and I have planted churches. We've established graduate schools and radio stations, and Media Light was a new thing, totally new. And we honestly didn't know that much about media in the beginning. I knew enough to know I needed to go to school. And I went to school. And when we made our first effort to have our own training program for Asia, it had a lot of gaps in it. But something I hope everybody gets is that you don't wait till you can do it perfect. I have a friend that says it like this: anything worth doing is worth doing poorly. And what he means is, if you're going to wait for excellence before you open the door the very first time, you're going to be waiting a long time, because the way you get to excellence is to do your best, critique it, now do it better next time, and this reiteration over and over again. But what I learned the most, and it's the reason we succeeded in getting it off the ground, was to bring in you get by with your friends. Your whole life's going to be the result of your relationships. And we had good relationships with Graham and Diane Vermooten and their son Shane, and they were media experts from Media Village in Cape Town. That's where I went to school. And they came over with so much grace, and they just poured into our students. They were our teachers for 2 whole years. When we ran school, they were there, and they were there for weeks and weeks, helping us get this off the ground, sharing how they did it, their whole curriculum they shared with us. And it wasn't until the 3rd year that we felt that we were on our own feet now, and we developed our own curriculum and changed to the DSLR phenomenon had started. But your friendships are really important as you try to succeed in anything. You remember anything else from those days that you just want to?
Yeah, I do remember that. Shane and Diane, they were so competent in their area of expertise. But the great thing about it was it was not threatening or anything like that on the standpoint of the other staff and the other leaders, because it was, these people operated, they knew what they were doing, and they were confident in it. And I think sometimes leaders, they get somewhat territorial and somewhat prideful in the standpoint of maybe they don't want to release power, expertise, and I think
And insecure.
in insecurity, and that was something that was refreshing to see, and it's something that I've kind of tried to operate in and extend in whether I teaching in class or working with someone. It is not beyond me to admit that, you know what, hey, I'm not the most competent in this. That's okay. This person is great. Like with on our staff, we have different. Luis is just amazing at, he can figure out a problem, do something on the fly so quickly. He's so good at so many different things. And for me, it is not beyond me to admit, hey, you know what? You're asking me that question. Let's talk to Luis about it because he's excellent at this. Or if a student asks me a question about something and I don't know the answer to it, I think if leaders can get to the place of saying those words, I don't know, but let's learn it together. And I think that first school was really a lot of, like, the staff was learning it together. They were relying on people that knew it. So I think being able to kind of humble yourself and it also allows you the opportunity to, to learn something new as well. So that's one of the things I've tried to incorporate, when I teach and when I lead is.
And really, that's the second curriculum. You've got your stated curriculum, which is the official thing. And then the secondary curriculum, it can really be so much more important, that you're showing humility, how to get things done.
And that's something that, and it stuck with me too, as a student, seeing staff operate in that, because I, have seen so many different leadership models, but it's always, leadership's being taught of, leaders being above and not among, and kind of pushing and spurring people on. So for me, it kind of really stuck out seeing, you and Sherry and Yune and Laney and those early staff. They didn't really have all the answers, but it was, all right, let's not keep us from moving forward. And I think a lot of times it's, we're hesitant, like you'd said a minute ago, we want to be excellent at everything. And I think, we want, being great is the enemy of getting started, because I think that's a lot of times we're too afraid to jump forward and move ahead because it's not perfect yet.
Well, let's talk about the pursuit of excellence. What's the one ingredient that you would say will help a person advance toward excellence? What have we learned? What have you learned as a teacher? Because you started as a student. Very quickly, you came over to the staff side, and you've been with us for all these 10 years. We've learned a lot about how to take a student who's never done a thing, and in 10 weeks, they're pretty good. So what key ingredient is in this?
Okay, so there's a lot in that, but I would say one of the main things is, just losing inhibition, losing fear of failure. It is okay to fail, because failure is opportunities to learn. I think a lot of students, they're just so caught up in doing it wrong that they just don't want to do it. And I think, I've found that sometimes in my own life personally, you just kind of have to push yourself beyond that. And then another thing that we practice is critique. And I think
that is life-changing.
It really is. It's one of these things that if you can open yourself up to critique, and when we see students, as they progress, a lot of them think they are professional photographers or videographers and great editors, but they may be the best in the context that they're in because they're the only one in their context. But initially they're so opposed to hearing anything negative because, mom, dad, uncle, auntie told them how great they were their entire lives.
Special.
So it's just these little mistakes, but by the time we see it, and it's almost like clockwork. We'll see them the first 2-3 critiques that we do. It's just just closed off. Anything, it's immediate excuse, and it's their guard is going up. But I think when you can kind of just let your guard down, be open to suggestions, be open to critique, it will change the way that you operate. And now you kind of, you look for critique, you look for opportunities to improve. I would say, that's one major area to in the pursuit of excellence, knowing that it's a pursuit, that you're not there yet. When people think that they're there, then they really have so much more to learn. But it's, people in the highest professions, like when they are at the top tier, they're still looking for, how can I improve, rather than those that are just starting out thinking they're amazing and everything, and the first time they hear that they're not, kind of almost, it's almost like shattering to them. But it's, if you can get past the discomfort, I think that's such a huge place to grow. Is we experience the most growth when we get past discomfort.
I've done a lot of things in my life, and I've got a lot of education. I have 10 years of education, bachelor's, master's, earned doctorate. Creating media, especially visual media like film, it's the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life to do really, really well. And critique is what takes you there. You do it the very best that you can do, and you raise yourself as high as you can. Then you submit it to important eyes to see it, people who are honest and actually know what they're talking about, and let them critique it. Now you take that critique to heart and you thank them for everything they point out. Now you go back to that same project and you fix it and you raise it up. And now when you present it to the world, you look pretty good. But you would never have gotten there. Their critique is the magic super sauce. Another thing that we've learned through the years is the importance, because as a teacher, career teacher myself, nobody learns more than the teacher. And we learned pretty early that for our students to go from very little media awareness up to media excellence, the only way there, or the quickest way at least, is they need to be a teacher. So we really encourage our students to go home from school, immediately gather 3 people, if that's all you can do, get them in your bedroom and just say, this is my academy. I'm going to tell you everything those people just taught me, and start doing it. And we will give them our entire curriculum, all the help. We've seen some really amazing things like Frankie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Frank, if you're watching, hey buddy.
Shout out to Frankie.
Yeah, big shout out. That, for me, that's some of the most rewarding things in Medialite, in being part of the Medialite family, is like I get the opportunity to go to different areas where students are and just kind of help them, almost like a safety net, and just being there with them. But we did a short school in India, and it was really, that was kind of one of those moments where you're just like a proud Papa Bear, seeing your students and people that you've taught, now they're teaching. And honestly, I don't feel like there was a lot that I had to add. It was more of me being able to witness and see them kind of going out on their own. And I'm sure they, Frankie and his team kind of experienced some of the same growing pains that we experienced setting up. It's not perfection, but I think a lot of us, as I said before, we let perfection be the enemy of just getting started, because things are not going to be perfect. If you're starting anything new, it's never going to be perfect. And if it is, then you need to write a book about it and tell us how to do it.
And our dream as a network is that we're going to help launch Points of Light around the world. We're so proud of Gene and her team in Ethiopia, and hello to everybody in Ethiopia, and also Daniel and his team in Vietnam, and shout out to Vietnam, and the Philippines. Rory and Gutch have sort of been the leaders there at pulling together training opportunities for their nation, and we're just so proud of all of you when you do that, and you rise up and you bring training back home. That's just so important, because we want to multiply Christians who are competent to use this new world language of media. And one of the things I've learned along the way is it's not just the pieces of media that we make. A lot of times we focus on the things we produce, whether it's a video or a song or whatever it is, and like, you know, that film is going to make a big difference in the world. But sometimes just holding a camera in public and putting yourself out there and saying, or coming to someone as a servant and saying, I have this piece of equipment and I have this skill. I'm a photographer or video maker. I'm here to capture your story. You know, sometimes that's all. Even if what comes out, that's not really the important. It's that human moment, one by one. I know you've had that experience so many times, and you've actually set up a sort of a nonprofit interest in this yourself, Johnny. Tell us a little bit about what photography can do.
Yeah, it's I've seen kind of something you'd said, the power of story, and like good stories are meant to be told, even to be told poorly, like as long as they're told, and like I've started doing more and more, and I want to do even more of it, but capturing photographs and just the power of a portrait and the sense of pride that it instills in families.
So you mean the giving of the portrait to the person? That's where the power is.
Yeah, for me, and there's other ways to do it, but for me, what I've started doing, and this happened. It started about 3 years ago. You know, I'd wanted to just give, because I get to travel a lot of different places, but every time that you take a picture, you know, you'll show the back of your camera, or if you're on your phone, you show them your phone, and then it goes with you, and then you're out of there. And for me, it was I want that sense of like pride and just, you know, that smile they have to stay with them when you. So what I started doing is, you know, it was 3 or 4 years ago. I went into first time I did it was in Myanmar, but we would do they have a sidewalk Sunday school ministry that they're there in Myanmar that people in the Philippines helped them set up, but it was one of these, you know, it was in a really poor community. They didn't have any you know, the school photos, school portraits, they don't really have that practice there. So I went in, I said, you know what, I'm going to get a little printer, and I had this little printer that I bought, and just started taking pictures of every kid that was part of the Sidewalk Sunday School program and printing it off there in the little village that we were in, and just the amazing thing to see the expression on the kids' faces, and then seeing the parents come after that and just saying thank you, and then them wanting to get a picture with their kids, and then realizing, you know, this is the first time that any of them have held their picture with their family, and it just started getting the wheels turning for me, just showing the power of a photograph. But it was an opportunity to kind of build a bridge between this ministry and these kids and these families, but that may not have been wanting to go to these ministry programs, these Sidewalk Sunday School programs, but now they were more open to it because some guy came in with a camera and they saw, oh, these people care about us. They're not just here to, you know, take advantage. And it's so been able to do that in other places. So it's kind of in the process now of figuring out, okay, I feel like there's more that I can be doing with it. But now figuring out, okay, how do we just make this more systematized, or actually building a ministry out of it. But the fact of just getting started and doing it.
So you go to villages and remote places where they've never seen, maybe they've seen each other's camera photos nowadays of themselves, but they've never held a portrait, a properly taken, beautiful portrait of a family member. And you just print those and you leave them. I imagine that's very popular the day you
yes.
go there to take those shots.
And I've learned a lot in doing it. So for instance, you know, some places I'll print them right there on site, but other times it becomes this, you know, crowds will start coming, and I've only got 50 pieces of photo paper. So what I do, you know, it gives me an opportunity to add more validity, because I always try to do it with a ministry partner or somebody that's there on the ground.
And that's a chance to go back a second time.
Yeah, so whether, you know, start taking pictures, and then through the local context say, hey, next Saturday, we're going to be back. We're here every week. Next Saturday, come. If you got your picture taken, we're going to print it and we're going to give it to. And it's cool to kind of see them now. They come back to that local ministry. Maybe that was the only time that they had ever been, but now it gives them an opportunity to come back. And it's always with the with the heart of we're here to serve you guys. There's no bait and switch. There's no you have to come and be a part of this in order to get your photo. I feel like every mother deserves to have a picture of their son or daughter because they're so proud of them. And it also instills a sense of pride because they're beautiful and they're worth it. So why not treat them that way?
You're somebody who stays up to date. You watch trends, you know what's going on in the news, you follow equipment, what's coming out, and trends in media and other things too. We're in a big season of disruptive. It just keeps happening. All this disruptive change, and you think couldn't get more disruptive. And then here comes just 3 or 4 months ago, we enter into this whole new place. And what open doors do you instead of just seeing it as in the negatives, what open doors do you see now for God's new messengers if they have competence in using media?
There's the world has changed in the past 3 to 6 months more so than in the last 10 years. I mean, it's crazy how aggressive technology has evolved, and it's out of the need of necessity. I was listening to an interview of the CEO of Microsoft recently, and just kind of talking about these big corporations. They're thinking 10 years down the road. This is where technology is headed, and it has. We have to get there eventually, but we know this is where it's coming, and waiting to implement those plans step by step. And the CEO is kind of talking and saying, what we thought was 5-10 years down the road has already started happening. Whether that be the influx of digital ordering, just teleconferencing. They believed that teleconferencing was going to happen and the need for travel was going to be less and less, but they didn't realize that it was going to be this fast. So it's seeing now we're in this place right now to where you look at just the rise of TikTok is this medium that's taking over the world, with Instagram and all these. So immediately someone has just as big a voice, if not bigger, than the largest news networks, the largest these people that have been established, the old news media, and I think it's just progressed so much. So for instance, you look at, like in the United States, there's a lot of political issues going on, and it's actually spilled over in different parts of the world with racial inequality and things like that. And it is amazing to see the news outlets are now sourcing a lot of their news to people that are there on the ground, because they can't go send a film crew anyway because of the hesitation or the travel restrictions that are in place. So they just say, hey, find somebody locally.
Yeah, and it's too slow.
Yeah. And we're seeing now people in these last 3 to 4, 5 months are used to seeing now an interview taking place digitally rather than being in the room there, sending a news reporter, sending a field reporter. So it opens a door for somebody, the excuse of, I don't have enough equipment, I don't have enough this or that. Those barriers have been taken down because the largest, Al Jazeera, CNN, BBC, they have field reporters with cell phones. So people are used to seeing this. So like we'd said before, letting perfection being the enemy of just getting started. I think the opportunities are we're there. What we thought was going to happen, 5-6 years from now. We could do an interview digitally, teleconference. The technology was there, but people were slow to adopt it because maybe the picture quality wasn't as good as they thought it'd be. They thought the picture quality would catch up in 10 years, but they've kind of jumped those hurdles, jumped those barriers. Picture quality may not be there yet, but it's okay.
People might not care.
Yeah, we don't care as much. So the opportunity for somebody to do a ministry, to do something from their living room or from their own backyard, the barriers of entry have completely just been blown out of the water.
Right. Just a cell phone, you can do so much. Well, we will have you back because there's so much I want to talk to you about, and you've got 10 years now as a teacher. You're a media missionary on your own in many countries of the world. You're moving all through the season, and you just have a lot to share, and we want to hear it from you. If somebody wanted to reach out to you after hearing this and say, I want to talk to Johnny Moore, how could they get a hold of you?
Easiest way, I don't check Facebook as much anymore, just because it's, Instagram's probably the best way for me. So it's just Johnny Moore, JONNYMOORE. Is Instagram's probably the best way.
And that's a good way to know who you are and what you're about anyway. So, all right. Thanks for coming by, Johnny. Appreciate it.